For many people, the word wilderness evokes an emotional response. It symbolises all that is wild and free and is as close to the natural world as we can get. It's almost more of an adjective than a noun. In this new series of wilderness walks, my guests and I will be celebrating these landscapes. We'll be exploring some of the wildest areas of Scotland and climbing the exotic mountains of Morocco. We'll travel through the ancient Celtic lands of Western Ireland, visit the Pyrenees, one of the most underrated mountain landscapes in Europe, and we're also travelling through one of the great wildernesses of North America. Today's wilderness travellers are not necessarily the hardened explorers of yesteryear, yet that same wilderness is still a powerful magnet, attracting people from the most unlikely of backgrounds. Runrig is one of the world's great folk rock bands and a Scottish institution. For over 10 years, the band was fronted by singer Donnie Munro.
The red hot sun burns up the hill, the winter's bright, the summer's king. I tramp these acres and I feel once upon a...
Runrig is unique in the world of rock music. They came not from a city, but from a Gaelic-speaking Highland culture far removed from the mainstream of British life. And their songs were not about urban living, but rooted firmly in the Scottish landscape.
Once in a lifetime, you live and love. Once in a lifetime, you die. Once in a moment, the sun goes down. Protect and survive.
Born and bred on the Isle of Skye, Donnie Munro was one of pop music's most unlikely stars. Last year, he left the band at the height of their success to pursue a career in politics. Now he's returned home to this most romantic of islands, once more amongst the Cuillin Hills that have shaped his whole life.
The Cuillins were a real focal point of childhood for us. It kept me late for school lots of mornings.
I was just looking at it.
Just looking at it, you couldn't head off for school and come out from Portree and see the whole Cuillin Ridge on a beautiful clear day without wanting to look at it for a while. I started going into the Cuillins when I was in my early teens. And again, you know, so often you're encouraged by people who have an enthusiasm for the mountains. And I started climbing with some teachers we had in school. And through them, became involved with the mountain rescue team. I think it was good training from the point of view of giving you a sense of you know, what these places were really like, and the fact that you had to deal, you know, with them very respectfully. Whew. Oh, a wonderful sight that is.
That's superb. We'd planned our journey through the heartland of the Cuillin, a route that would immediately take us to the summit of Marsco and the following day down Glen Sligachen to Loch Carrusk, a wild and lonely place clenched in the grip of the Cuillin Mountains. After camping here, we would follow the coastal path over the infamous Bad Step to the lovely bay of Camasunary, from where we planned an ascent of Blavin, one of the grandest hills in Scotland. The final part of our journey would take us to the village of Elgol. It was a journey begun on Marsco's green slopes, in both word and song. Greenest blood Gary, blue is the sea, born here the lassie, to guide our friends free.
I've always used this background and this landscape as the kind of honest measure, because when you go out into society and into different worlds, you'll always find a society that often congregates around itself and elevates itself into a particular position. But if that happens to you, then you take yourself here and it's meaningless, you know, because you know where you are when you're here.
This landscape brings you back to earth.
It brings you back totally to a real sense of proportion. Clouds come down over there again.
Whew.
That's great. This is it.
It's a pull up the last bit.
Yeah.
We'd climbed Marsco from its sheltered northeastern corrie. But there was no escaping the wind as we approached the summit ridge. Donnie has admired this hill from childhood. He's even performed a song named after it, but he's never actually stood on its summit.
Wow, made it.
Ah, that's great.
Made it, well done. Well done. The summit of Marsco.
Summit of Marsco, yeah. Mount Thomond Marsco.
Are you going to give us a belt,
I've been here before, yeah. I've been hearing the song, but this is the first time in reality.
How does it feel?
It's great. I mean, I really enjoyed it. This is a tremendous vantage point.
It is.
You can really see all around you. So the 360 degrees, you
Yeah.
got the cones over there. I mean, a fairly low cloud coming in there, actually, but any moment it clears and you see the whole thing.
We can see the rest of our route quite nicely
Yeah,
from
back
here.
down in Glen in there.
Lovely. Well, we've got to get down there. But we don't have a hang glider.
I think you'd go pretty far if you had, you know, sort of,
Aye.
you'd end up in Rum, I think, you know.
I think you could, well, you might well do. You might well end up in America at this rate.
Blown off the summit of Marsco, we soon found shelter for the night in the depths of Glen. The glen makes a deep incision running due south to the coast and is popular with walkers. It offers a spectacular perspective on the hills that crowd in on all sides.
Look at that.
It's great, isn't it? That's yesterday, this.
Isn't it amazing that from this side it's almost like a completely different mountain?
I know, it's an amazing mountain.
Gone is the conical shape.
And you're starting to pick up this distinctive cliff, which is so familiar from the north end. The way I'm used to seeing Marsco gives it its shape from the other side.
Good. We're almost up at the Bialach.
Yep. Forever in these hills. Ah, that's good. It's nice to be up that early in the morning as well, you know?
Now, I don't want to sound like a middle-aged groupie, but I'm actually a long-time Runrig fan. Honestly, I am. I even ran a folk club once, so I've a genuine interest in hearing Donnie's view of what made the band such a success. After all, there aren't that many bands that have played alongside the Stones, Genesis, Dylan and Van Morrison.
I suppose when people were analysing what it was that made what you did different or special, I think the fact that it was a rock music that was coming from a rural environment rather than an urban one. I think a lot of people became tired too with the fact that sometimes rock music had a tendency to become formulaic and often lacking distinctive melody. And if we carried anything with us in terms of influence, it was that Gaelic melody was kind of really strong part of the musical tradition.
What was it like, Donnie, working with people like Dylan and Van Morrison and the Stones? I mean, that must have been a tremendous thrill
It
for someone
was.
who's into music.
But in some ways, the point of contact for people going in was very limited. You know, you're not likely to sort of be sitting down with your tea with the Stones. Although in certain cases, bands like Genesis that we worked with, you know, we were able to sit and talk about things with them. You know, a number of issues, including their ownership at the time. And
Yes, they own land in Mull, don't they?
they do, and you know, I think, I mean, I was in one of these delicate moments just before going on stage with Genesis, where I was sort of, you know, I felt it, you know, really vital and a very natural way to talk about that with them, you know, and although it was difficult to broach the subject in that very
Did you have
tense
some
moment.
objection to the fact
Well,
that they owned land there?
it's not just so much objection, that there were clearly problems with the management of the land there and with what was happening. And I felt it was, as somebody from the West Coast, you know, who belonged to these communities, it was my duty to point it out to them.
How did they react to that? Because that must have been the last
were
thing they
taken aback.
expected in a pop concert.
Yeah, I suppose so, you know, waiting in the wings in Hockenheim Stadium with 100,000 or whatever people out front, you don't expect to have a conversation on land use in Scotland. But it's, you know, there are these moments in your life where you have an opportunity to actually do something that might make a difference the way people think, and I certainly wasn't going to back down from it simply because it was indelicate.
I suppose there's always a great risk in creating icons in your own mind about people like Dylan and Van Morrison, you know, some of the greats of the pop industry.
I think we create icons too easily.
Pop culture tends to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It elevates and separates. Unfortunately, there are people who, you know, who celebrate and rejoice in that sort of celebrity status and that kind of separation. But I think they also pay the price. I mean, I think a lot of these people, you know, who operate at that level, you know, have gone through a separation and sort of in terms of themselves and ordinary people. I've often said the person who wanders around this world thinking of themselves as being a star is basically, you know, in need of psychiatric help.
heading for the remote shore of Loch Carrusk. The early explorers came by boat, but our journey took us from Glen Sligachen, over the shoulder of Sgurnastree, and down to the loch itself.
To feel you all around me, to take your hand
along the sand. But may as well try and catch the wind.
La-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, la-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. Wow. That's amazing.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm fascinated with this place because I've obviously seen, you know, stuff like the Turner watercolour of Carrusk and, you know, various other people working at it.
It's not a place that make you want to sing, though, isn't it? I mean, I know it's
Absolutely.
Walking down here that you were bursting into song.
Oh,
into
yeah,
song.
it's great. It's just nice to find yourself in a place like this and you have space around you and you can just sort of let loose.
What did you get out of your time with Runrig? What were the big things that you felt are great memories?
You become aware that music impacts in people's lives way beyond the point that you yourself may have you know, sort of set out to do. Playing in East Berlin before the wall came down, and, you know, playing in Belfast at a time when, you know, there was very few artists going in at the height of the Troubles, and just getting the kind of feedback that you got from people there in Belfast. I remember one incident where a woman chased me through the streets the following day and sort of blessed us, you know, 100 times over because her family had been out at the concert the night before and they had been for 2.5 or 3 hours totally removed from, you know, the problems that they were faced. These kind of things are very humbling experiences.
Few would dispute that Loch Carrusk is the jewel in the Coolan Crown, a special place to put up our tents and camp out.
That was a good night.
You sleep well?
I got up at about 4 and came out and had a look around here and it looked fantastic even then. It was beautiful this morning.
It's not a bad place to wake up to in the morning.
Oh, it's fantastic, especially, you know, just this direct sunlight into it now and it's throwing everything up. Yeah. You know, like last night you were seeing it mostly in silhouette and it's just so unusual to be somewhere where, you know, where everything's rising straight from sea level, where, you know, obviously we're just straight in here off the sea.
Cuckoo, do you hear it?
Yeah, I heard the cuckoo earlier. I was awakened by the cuckoo this morning.
Oh, you were you?
And it's strange, I think it's been with us the last couple of days.
Carrusk cuckoo. I think there's also something quite special about spending the night in a place like this rather than just coming and visiting it and then leaving in the same day.
Oh yeah, it's a great feeling sort of just waking up here and being able to take it all in again in the morning. You should have speed trials with these things for the climbers and walkers, you know.
Well, it's funny sometimes do that, you know, you hear people boasting in campsites. Oh, I erected my tent in 2 3/4 minutes.
Oh, but the pain and the joy forever in these hills. What breaks the heart is now easy to feel. And the joy forever in these hills. Oh, that's good. And we should be seeing out to the island shortly. Oh, there we go. Egg's very distinctive, isn't it? Just the shape of it.
It is, yeah, very much so. And they're so different. Egg and rum, and little, I think it's little muck in the middle.
Elan Much.
Elan muck.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Ah, literally, island of pigs.
Oh, right.
I'm sure there's no reflection on anybody who ever lived there, but...
No reflection on the people.
No?
No, I hope not.
Actually, they used to come to Skye, the children from Muck used to come to school here as well. From that, all the small islands, and those from Egg had great nicknames, like Scrambles.
The scrambles.
Yokan.
Kids can be cruel.
These were the most kind, I can tell you. It's a well-defined path now.
The whole nature of our walk now dramatically changes, from rugged loch and glen to a wild, enticing coastline. But as everyone who's been here knows, there is one notorious difficulty: the optimistically named Bad Step.
So this is the Bad Step. So named.
This is it. It's got a wee bit of a reputation, you know.
I think maybe the unsuspecting coming along the path suddenly might find it a bit daunting.
Well, I've heard of one chap who just refuses to cross it.
All
And
right.
when he gets here, he just jumps in the loch and swims round.
Oh, brave man, have you felt that water?
He must be a bit daft.
Yeah. Okay. And you jump down. And then you're down onto a flat terrace. And that's it.
Good. Oh, and it's suddenly easy ground again.
Yeah.
With the difficulties behind us, the coastal path faithfully follows every indentation of Loch Scavaig and arrives at Camasunary. This was once one of the remotest crofts on the whole island. Nowadays walkers use it as a shelter. It's a wonderful scene, dominated by the conical shape of Blavin.
It's a nice run up there, nice jog for us tomorrow.
Well, you can jog, I'll walk.
Yeah. There's a bar of soap in the window there. I think somebody's trying to tell us something, a bit of a hint, I think. That is beautiful. Uh-huh.
Oh, well, I'll have
Nice.
to wait another wee while.
Sweetest carbolic.
Cool.
It's nice having the window in this.
Oh, window. Gosh, that's the best looking bothy I've seen for a while.
Yes.
With the long and steep west ridge of Blavin rising before us, I reckon this was the right time to talk about Donnie's involvement in politics. With the effort of climbing uphill and being a tad out of breath, I thought I might just avoid a party political broadcast.
Did your own interest in politics, Donnie, stem from this love of the land?
Yes, a real kind of interest I have in politics had nothing to do with sort of some airy-fairy, dreamy intellectual approach to political philosophy. It was totally rooted in just a sense of community, but also there was a pretty radical political tradition on the island, you know, through the Land League movement. Places like Braes, up in the north end of Staffin, was the site of the last land battle on British soil. The Marines were sent in, but they were met on the journey by a group of people from the Braes area, many of them women, to be honest, and forced back in a kind of open confrontation.
And was there much injury?
Maybe describing it as a battle in the normally accepted sense of the word is misleading, but it was a very courageous stand.
And that's really the substance of so many of the songs that you sing.
Yes, I think there's song Recovery, which you know, touches on that, particularly with reference to people like John McPherson, Glendale, who became known as the Glendale Martyr.
That's grand, a Friday morning walking up blathering about politics.
It's a good way of working off the breakfast, isn't it? Yeah, I wonder many people have come up here blathering about politics. I'm sure many.
Oh,
Sure
absolutely.
many.
Absolutely, it's part of our life, isn't it? I mean, how do you honestly feel in your own heart, Donnie, when you look at a landscape like this? Is there awareness in your heart when you look at this that somebody actually owns this?
No.
Somebody is a legal owner of this sort of landscape?
No, it makes no sense. I mean, it just makes no sense at all to think of it in these terms. Oh, you.
Wow.
Isn't that great? Oh, look at the Pinnacle Ridge.
Oh. Isn't that good? Almost the whole array of peaks with
Fantastic. Oh, the Cullen
one
Ridge there.
exception. Oh, it's jagged, isn't it? Jagged, ragged peaks. Terrific.
And that is some view. Oh, that's fantastic looking back up there, isn't it?
I must say, in I don't know, a lifetime of
Just back where we started.
coming to Skye, Donnie, I've never seen the Coolin arrayed like that.
It's just nice to sort of look back on your journey across onto Marscoan. Just the whole range there. Looks absolutely wonderful. It's good when you see Skirnagillion standing out like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just as clearly as that.
You can see everything.
Yep.
Everything, every single peak in the whole ridge.
It's really powerful. My experience of having grown up here in the island is one of meeting people who have come here for particular reasons, to get away from the stress of other ways of living. And I remember through my entire sort of student years, probably much to the horror of my parents, you know, every time I came home, it generally meant a house full of people. But there really is no greater pleasure than taking somebody to a place that you find just so powerful, so special, and just saying, well, you know, this is it, you know, how do you feel? Yeah, it's a great privilege to be able to do that, to be honest. Great.
It's blowy up here.
It's fantastic panorama right round you.
Approaching the summit of Blavan, I was determined to tackle Donnie about his own ambitions. He's publicly declared that he'll stand for the first Scottish Parliament, but I wondered if this was yet another case of a celebrity dabbling in politics.
I feel very privileged to have grown up in this area. I feel very privileged to have been nurtured, if you like, by the area, by the culture, and by this community. And it's just a very strong sense of wanting to contribute and to put something back into it. I'd certainly like to see the Scottish Parliament move beyond simply relocating and finding itself in Edinburgh. I'd like to see substantial agencies, if you like, of government, organisations like SNH or the Tourist Board, or you know, large agencies dealing with with sort of ecology, with conservation, whatever, actually locating themselves in areas in the Highlands. There's absolutely no reason why devolution should actually stop at Edinburgh.
What about the very highest levels of government? And have you talked over these things with, say, Tony Blair, the Prime Minister?
I've spoken with Tony Blair on a number of occasions, simply speaking together at rallies. We had a very humorous exchange in the Usher Hall in Edinburgh when we spoke at the kind of final rally before the last election, and we took some time out to have a private conversation about specifically Highland issues. Tony Blair, of course, has made no secret of his own musical past, and thought it was rather ironic that, as he said himself, he had always wanted to be a rock star, and he said, how strange, you know, here you are, wanting to be a politician, you know.
Over the years, I've spoken to 2 or 3 politicians who are quite keen in climbing hills, and they'll give their eye teeth for a constituency like this one.
Yes, of course.
So
Yes. Not many constituents here.
From the summit of Blavan, a steep descent back to Camasunary brings another coastal path all the way to our journey's end. The view which greeted us was a reminder that despite man's efforts to keep the coastline clean, the prevailing tides make it a losing battle.
It's a bit of a shock to the system to come down from the mountains and get in so much blooming rubbish.
I know, it's one of the unfortunate things. There's just so much plastic.
Well, virtually
It's
everything we
most,
see is plastic, polypropylene,
Yeah.
foam.
So much of it is really just due to carelessness. And it's so hard for people to clean these places up. Very different from yesterday. I like it sometimes when you get, I mean, harsh sunlight and sort of strong colour's great, but I also like it when you get this very muted, gentle, soft kind of colour.
So how do you find Blavin?
Well, that was good, really lovely. Nice looking back up there. It's, as I said, it's one of my favourite hills in the Coolins. I think it's a really lovely ridge, and it's, as we saw, it gave you a tremendous vantage point for seeing not just into the Coolin itself, but right around across to the west side. It's kind of a low cloud level out there. It's kind of very hazy. It's nice though, nice calm sort of look about it when you get that sea merging into the sky. Just a hazy outline.
So what have you thought of the route?
Really enjoyed it because it's taken us right down Glen Sligerton there, and you know, you get the red Coolin on one side. And, you know, on to Marsko was good as well. And the night in Karushk, I have to say, I really enjoyed being there.
Had you ever planned in a long-term fashion to come back to Skye, or is it something that just happened?
I think it would probably be true to say I had never planned, period. You know, it's one of these things that never one of life's great planners. I always had the sense that you looked at things in stages. And it's a bit like, in some ways, an analogy with the hills. Every rise you come onto leads you onto something else. And it's only once you've gone over that rise that you can really start to think about the next one.
Is this walk we've just done, is it giving you any new perspective on your homeland?
It's like many people who are aware of things in their own home areas, but who don't necessarily take the time to have first-hand experience of them. Every day as I look out and, you know, the first thing I see is the Coolins. It's just been so central a part of my life. I don't think there's any point in the island here that you can't actually see the Coolins. Whether people go up, whether they go in climbing, whether they go walking or not, I think the Coolins are just the kind of really sort of central symbol, if you like, of Skye as an island. There's so much. I think people find that if they take time out in their own areas just to sort of look around them and to enjoy what's there. It can keep you occupied for a long time.
Yeah.
That's not to say that, you know, 2 or 3 weeks in the sun isn't also very welcome on occasions.
Next week, Cameron is joined by writer Nicholas Crane as they journey across the Pyrenees. That's at the same time, 8 o'clock here on BBC Two.